Hello and welcome to another edition of the Morning Brew live on NTN, coming to you from the Government Information Service studios, bringing you the latest news coming from the government of St. Lucia. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're on air, online, watching, good morning to you. Facebook, YouTube, our channel 122, good morning to you. To residents in St. Lucia as well as St. Lucians living in the diaspora, we thank you so much for tuning in and keeping abreast with all things that are St. Lucian. We lead with our news today with a COVID-19 update coming from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. And we do have the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmar-George, giving that update. It includes an advisory, especially as we've had the reopening of school this week, and sectors are being opened, restrictions are being reduced, and the public is being advised to take personal responsibility as more space and more leniency is being given at this time. We also have the St. Lucia's Prime Minister calling on global stakeholders to ignite consumer confidence and boost tourism. We would have known that up to yesterday day before yesterday, there was a BBC interview that was conducted. The Prime Minister was speaking, continuing to advocate for pre-testing prior to travel as part of increasing consumer confidence and, boosting tourism overall. We also have a report on schools in Castries Southeast adapting to the new normal, and the constituency, the parliamentary representative for the area, commending the schools in that area for being innovative, and 15 Caribbean entrepreneurs prepare for their ultimate challenge. Today is Wednesday, the 9th of September 2020. Thank you so much for making the Morning Brew your wake-up program. Do stay tuned. We'll have the details to these stories and more coming up after this break.
She's been watching, waiting, wondering when the sands of time will give way to a tide of change, and for yesterday and today to become a new tomorrow. For a time when her sun can kiss the cheeks of your loved one and her stars can twinkle in her honeymoon skies. When her earthly embrace will reassure and calm your soul. And her unique view can change your whole perspective. Proudly, she has risen to meet new challenges and to provide safe harbor to all who reach her shores. For her hopes and dreams still stand, shoulder to shoulder, a precious reminder of experiences yet to come. So, wherever your moments and memories take you, let her sense of adventure set you free. She is St. Lucia. Let her inspire you.
You are watching the Morning Brew live on NTN. We're bringing you the latest news coming from the government of St. Lucia for the 24-hour news cycle. We have a COVID-19 update from the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmar-George did present that update yesterday, and we now go to her giving an update on the confirmed cases so far for St. Lucia, as well as an advisory, especially as the education sector. Education school has resumed this week. We've gone into the new term, and it was wonderful to see the kids going back to school this week with so much enthusiasm. the kids having their masks, their hand sanitizers, and everything in tow to ensure that they adhere to the protocols. Speaking to the Chief Education Officer yesterday, Dr. Fiona Philip-Meyer, she did indicate that a lot of what was happening from the ministry's end was a lot of assessing and observing from a distance because everything seems to be put in place for most schools at this time, and they're just seeing and looking and, enjoying, the fact that these schools and the parents and the students are playing their part as we enter into this new normal. So it's really good to see. We do hope all the kids keep it up. We do hope the parents remain consistent in ensuring that their children continue to go to school with their masks and keeping hand sanitizers if, for instance, they don't have soap and water at hand during the day. So we go to the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Sharon Belmont-George, just giving us an update overall and the special advisory for the reopening of school. Take a look.
St. Lucia has recorded a total of 26 confirmed cases of COVID-19 to date. Presently, all of the COVID-19 cases have recovered and St. Lucia has recorded 0 COVID-19 deaths. A total of 5,977 tests have been conducted. As more sectors open and restrictions are reduced, the public is advised to take personal responsibility to protect themselves and family. We continue to increase surveillance to reduce the risks such as the illegal entry at the borders, the breaches to home quarantine, and non-adherence to protocols. The Ministry of Health and Wellness continues to work closely with the Ministry of Education and the schools to ensure safe reopening during this time. We advise parents to work closely with the teachers and principals in the best interests of the students. We continue to advise against mass crowd gatherings. The public is reminded that protocols are still in place, and these include the use of face masks in public and to maintain safe physical distance from others. The 5 respiratory clinics remain open to facilitate anyone with respiratory signs and symptoms, and the 311 hotline is also available where concerns and questions can be addressed. We continue to advise on the importance of maintaining the standard recommendations for infection prevention and control, which include regular hand washing with soap and water or alcohol-based hand sanitizer where soap and water is not available, and to also cover your mouth and nose with disposable tissues when coughing and sneezing. We appeal to everyone to continue supporting our national effort to minimize the threat of COVID-19 on our island. The Ministry of Health, we will continue providing further updates on COVID-19.
That was Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmont-George. And, we're noting that we're seeing her a little bit less on our television screens these days. And we hope it really means that is a good thing. We're getting advisories, but we're not getting, the constant flow of cases and considerations for measures being put in place, and that speaks to the level of the level of assurance that the officials have in the population at this time to do and to take on more responsibilities on their own at this time. And we do hope you are doing that, especially again as we have the reopening of school. More and more businesses are opening. We're entering, other levels to the tourism sector, and we do hope that you are playing your part, because at this point it is a very critical time. We have reopened the country, and to the degree where it is important that every individual, not just at the official level, heads of state are taking measures, the Royal St. Lucia Police Force, to ensure that the protocols are being adhered to, but everybody needs to play their part at this point in time. And I trust that the Operations Command Center is really putting their faith in the public at this time to do their part. More sectors being opened, restrictions being reduced, the public being advised advised to take more personal responsibility to protect themselves and family. The Ministry of Health and Wellness, however, continues to increase its surveillance to reduce certain risks such as illegal entry at the borders, breaches to home quarantine, and not adherence to protocols. So while there is an increase in the levels of responsibility that is being offered to the public, there is still a certain level of surveillance that is happening to ensure that the work that has been done in managing St. Lucia's response to COVID-19, the pandemic, is not compromised in any way. There is still work going on between the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the Ministry of Education as the school term started this week. And we did hear from the Chief Education Officer that many schools have been allowed to open, of course, in adherence with the protocols as well. And also there's been news, she did indicate in an interview yesterday that provisional the early childhood development centers have been allowed provisional opening, permission to reopen their institutions this week. And we know that a lot of parents have to go to work, and things are slowly coming back to normal, apologies, but a new normal. And so they are trying to accommodate that. So while the schools are reopening, they have already submitted their applications, what they're going to do to ensure that they adhere to the protocols. They're being given provisional permission to reopen school until there can be a full assessment of their situation on a school-by-school basis. You're reminded also that anyone showing respiratory signs and symptoms is asked to visit a respiratory clinic. They remain open up to today and continuing until further notice to facilitate this situation. The 311 hotline is also available. You can call, post your concerns, your queries, and questions. They can all be addressed. And the Ministry of Health and Wellness continues to advise on the importance of maintaining the standard recommendations. I think by this time everyone is aware that you keep your mask when you're going out on your face, regular hand washing with soap and water, on alcohol-based hand sanitizer where the soap and water is not available, and covering your mouth with the disposable tissues or clothing when coughing or sneezing, observing the 6-foot distance. We know it. We continue with the news this morning. The global impact of COVID-19 continues to deepen, with millions of people unemployed and thousands of companies folding. And the stark reality of the situation has not escaped the Caribbean, which is heavily dependent on travel and the tourism sector. It is for St. Lucia, that reliance accounts for 65% of the gross domestic product GDP. It is against this backdrop that Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chastanet continues to call on airlines and countries to move the meter forward on pre-testing to help consumer confidence and the tourism sector overall. Prime Minister Chastanet was a guest on BBC World News discussion program Global on Monday, 7th September 2020, discussing how the pandemic and Caribbean leaders how the Caribbean and leaders of today are navigating this pandemic. We know it has been a very trying time for them. There have been many decisive decisions that they've had to make, and also deliberate as well. So we have a report on that interview from the Honourable Prime Minister.
Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chastanet is optimistic that the Caribbean's tourism industry will emerge stronger from the COVID-19 pandemic. Honorable Chastanet, who led the drafting of protocols for tourism for CARICOM, is resolute that pre-testing is the ace card for the travel and tourism industry across the world. Noting St. Lucia's own success with insisting that all visitors present negative COVID test results for entering the country, Honorable Chastanet says this model will bring back confidence to all stakeholders, including the economies of the source markets.
Causing persons to be pre-tested a certain period before getting on the plane, I think, brings confidence back to the tourists themselves, as well as protecting the state. And I also heard the idea of people being pre-tested before they go back in order to not have to do the quarantine. I want to say that St. Lucia supports that policy strongly. We've shown that we've implemented that successfully in this country. We think it's just crazy that the airline industry has not adopted pre-testing as a prerequisite before getting on a plane. Long-haul vacationing is actually an industry in itself. I mean, 2/3 of the money that a British tourist spends in St. Lucia comes back to the UK. It's your airline, it's your tour operator, it's your travel agency, it's your insurance companies. And so there's a win-win situation here when we can now see the confidence in traveling returning.
St. Lucia has welcomed some 6,000 visitors since reopening the borders, representing a decline in arrivals of more than 80% over 2019. Government revenue is also down between 50 to 60%, and government's efforts at reducing the unemployment rate from 25% to 16% has regressed, with the thousands of workers that have been forced on the breadline by COVID-19.
The Caribbean, in absolute terms, the amount of tourists that we get is a small portion of global tourism. And so even though we're seeing a global contraction in the industry, given the success that the Caribbean has had in large, St. Lucia and some of the islands in particular, we think that we're going to see a rebound in that sector.
More than 30 million people visited the Caribbean in 2019, contributing nearly $60 billion to the region's GDP. From the Government Information Service, Lisa Joseph reporting.
Thanks for that report, Alyssa. And we are due for a break at this time, but when we come back, we take a look at the back-to-school experience within the CARICOM, the Caribbean community. We have that after the break. We have the CARICOM News Time report. We also have the school tour that was conducted by the parliamentary representative for Castries Southeast and Honorable Guy Joseph, commending the schools in his constituency for their innovation in ensuring that the protocols are adhered to at the school compound. So stay tuned for that story, those stories, and more coming up after this break.
Back to school is finally here. Jay, you have your hand sanitizer, you have your disinfecting wipes. I even gave you an extra mask, and this one you can put it on.
Jaden, what are the COVID-19 rules?
Wash your hands, always wear a mask, and 6 feet away.
Ensure your children are provided with a personal hygiene kit to carry and use on a daily basis. Items like hand sanitizer, wipes, and extra masks should be in there. Remember, if your child does not feel well or is showing any flu-like symptoms, keep him or her at home. Ensure your child wears a mask at all times, especially upon the arrival at school.
Classrooms have been prepared to ensure physical distancing. Teachers and support staff will guide students during the day to wash their hands, and all surfaces, desks, chairs, door handles, and washrooms will be cleaned regularly.
By now, administrations of schools would have communicated the new schedule specific to your child's grade or form. Lunches will be consumed at the student's desk or outdoors while respecting physical distancing.
As we start the new school year, 2020-2021, we are all adjusting to the new normal that was introduced by COVID-19. I beg of all of you, let us observe the guidelines as prescribed by the Ministry of Health. Our children, teachers, educators, stakeholders, we all depend on one another to do the right thing for the sake of our children and the sake of our nation. Let us all be vigilant and observe the protocols as defined by the Ministry of Health.
Cette lisi ka registre vermin corona ek I ka fait mouvement ek an chay vitesse tan chaque canef ka kouye pour vigilance publique la fait wolo parler en place publique kon bon lanme base ti boutique changer distance sociale 6 pieds Rodyon a lot. I ka travay tan, si ou santi ko pa cordial, quarantine ko, pas twe contact epi lot en cas où te trompé exposé. C'est un écouillé, Free 11 ou ben n'importe clinique yo pour yo. Les pays a dimi à clé, ça veut dire les supermarkets, pharmacies et puis ATM, yo accessible avant c'était souhait. Pays à clé en plein, ça veut dire tout bagay fermé à 24 heures. Servi protocole comme sorti par bureau indication santé. Nous tout ensemble, ça sauver vers mine corona. Si nous tous servi Jidla à toutes les.
Together let us win this war. Say to shall be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
Thank you so much for staying tuned. We opened the broadcast with a COVID-19 update from Chief Medical Officer Dr. Sharon Belmont George, just giving us a status update on where we're at COVID-19 wise, the 26 confirmed cases, the 5,977 tests conducted to date, and St. Lucia having recorded 0 COVID-19 deaths on the island. And as more sectors reopen, restrictions being lessened, persons being called upon to take more responsibility to protect themselves and their families by adhering to the protocols. We also had the Honorable Prime Minister, Honorable Alan Chastanet, speaking in a BBC interview, advising and advocating for pre-testing for travel to improve and to further help consumer confidence and boost tourism, the tourism sector, and travel overall, on which St. Lucia and the rest of the Caribbean depends on heavily. Now we move to the Caribbean, our Caribbean neighbors who are facing a rise in COVID-19 cases. They are saddled with the financial burden of ramping up efforts to combat the novel coronavirus. We have the details of this update from Michelle Nurse of CARICOM News Time, who also shares the back-to-school experience of the various islands. We know it will be different. The return to school, the new academic year will take various forms depending on the severity of COVID-19 in the various territories. So take a look at that report.
The government of Guyana has allocated $4.5 billion to fight the COVID-19 pandemic, as confirmed cases and deaths in the country continue to rise. There are now more than 1,000 confirmed cases and more than 30 deaths in the country. President Irfan Ali announced that funds are being mobilized from the World Bank, the OPEC Fund for International Development, the Inter-American Development Bank, and the Islamic Development Bank, totaling $60 million. The government also received a grant from the government of India to the tune of $2 million. Guyana's Health Minister, Dr. Frank Anthony, indicated that some of the money will be allocated for the procurement of items to be used in the infectious diseases hospital, which will serve as an isolation facility. The COVID-19 pandemic continues to cause serious disruptions in the education systems across the Caribbean community. While school leaving examinations have been completed, the education sector is grappling with a range of challenges, including the uncertainties related to the safe reopening of schools and how to bridge the gap of uneven access by students to online educational opportunities. Early childhood education centers in Antigua and Barbuda have had to shut their doors because of mounting expenses resulting from the pandemic. Education Officer with responsibility for early childhood education, Ms. Embler Spencer, says there are now less than 90 operating early childhood facilities in Antigua and Barbuda, 3 of which are government-owned. In Barbados, the Ministry of Education is holding consultations with teachers and other stakeholders to get their input on the safe reopening of schools in September.
And that was a report there coming from CARICOM News Time, and Michelle Nurse of that production. We now move on to news here at home. Minister for Economic Development, Housing, Urban Renewal, Transport and Civil Aviation and Parliamentary Representative for Castries Southeast, Honorable Guy Joseph, has been assessing the readiness of schools in his constituency. The minister toured the schools, meeting with teachers and students as they adapt to the COVID-19 protocols. We have a report on that tour held on Monday.
Schools in Castries Southeast constituency are being commended for the innovative measures they have taken to ensure adherence to COVID-19 protocols on the compounds. Minister for Economic Development, Housing, Urban Renewal, Transport and Civil Aviation and Parliamentary Representative for the area, Honorable Guy Joseph, was impressed when he toured these schools as they reopened on Monday, 7th of September.
Just viewing the protocols and everything that is in place is just amazing to see what has happened, the new procedures, the guidelines to go into the sink and to the washrooms. I mean, going to the Forestier School, I saw some creativity there where the teacher had created a separate screen between the blackboard and the students, where she could stand in between the blackboard and the screen and be able to speak without a mask, because a lot of the sounds of the letters, there's the mouth movement that is required. So while it is a difficult time for us with COVID, it is indeed a time for innovation, for new challenges, and to be able to adapt to some of the new protocols and procedures.
After months of restriction in the education sector due to the pandemic, most schools on island reopened at the start of this week, working up until the last minute to welcome their student populations. Principal at the Forestier Methodist Combined School, Althea Ernest, says much has been accomplished in the lead up to Monday.
So we have taken a number of measures to ensure that the students are safe and that school can reopen today, Monday. We have gotten the assistance to get the place power washed. We have done some deep cleaning. We have put up the signs to ensure that parents follow the necessary protocols. This morning, we made sure we took the students' temperature when they came in. We sanitized everybody who came in to the compound. Also, we're thankful we have been able to get a plumber this morning, assistance to get a plumber to check on the plumbing, the toilets, and so that needed repairs. So we are more or less well on the way to function as normal.
The Forestier Methodist Combined School will be open 4 days weekly, Monday to Thursday for instruction, and Fridays school will be closed for teachers to plan and prepare for the new week. This is one measure of the Department of Education in the COVID-19 environment. Honorable Joseph encourages parents to cooperate with schools at this time.
I really applaud all that I have seen today, and I appeal to our teachers and our parents more so to help the teachers in observing the protocols, in training the children properly at home, helping them to maintain proper protocols at home, so that at the end of the day we would do what is necessary.
Honorable Joseph also visited the Bexar Infant and Primary, Tiroche Combined, Otsa Combined, Labei SDA Primary, and Lakwamengo Combined Schools on Monday. 300 backpacks with notebooks and other school supplies were also donated to students in need in the constituency. From the Government Information Service, I am Anicia Antoine reporting.
You are watching the Morning Brew. Thank you, Anicia. By the way, when we come back, we're due for a break. 15 young entrepreneurs from the Caribbean have made it through to the semi-final round of the business model competition. Find out which St. Lucian made it through.
What's in the food you're eating? Do you really even know? All the chemicals and hormones used to accelerate their growth. All the artificial flavoring, sweeteners and colors too. We we consume and we don't spare a thought for the damage that they'll do. No, think about the children. Think about the children. How will we save them? Chemicals and GMOs are not the solution. Use organic and join.
Excessive agrochemical use, additives, and genetically modified foods are harmful to health and the environment. Join the good food revolution. Grow, buy, and consume organic. A message from Rise St. Lucia and the Ministry of Sustainable Development with funding from the GEF Small Grants Program, UNDP.
The good food revolution.
What does coronavirus have in common with love? Both are highly contagious. Spread love, not the virus. Like you, COVID-19 loves a lime. Beach, river, or fed. Coronavirus is like these people who track every lime just to invade. The best way to put off invaders? Cancel the lime. Spread love, not the virus. Keep you and your crew corona-free. Live to lime another day.
Together let us win this war. Said we shall be a soldier. Together we can beat this corona.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We continue with news for the 24-hour news cycle coming from the government of St. Lucia. 15 young entrepreneurs from the Caribbean have made it through to the semi-final round of the business model competition. They are vying for an unprecedented opportunity to pitch their business ideas to global investors. We have a report.
So we have now come to the close of 2 days of intense presentations.
The names of the 15 semi-finalists were announced after a tough quarter-final pitching contest involving 30 of the region's most promising entrepreneurs. The business model competition, organized by the OECS Commission, is part of the Sustainable Development Movement.
It is a movement that we are seeking to ignite, and its ultimate objective is to light fires of innovation, to inspire creativity, to stimulate thinking beyond the problems to the possibilities.
Dr. Jules informed his global audience that the business model competition is making a growing club of business coaches and investors available to help increase the competitiveness of regional entrepreneurs.
To mentor and assist in the shaping of business plans, to adjudicate on the viability and business viability of the ideas, and ultimately to invest in and scale up these innovations.
The presenting sponsor, Republic Bank, celebrated the young entrepreneurs participating in business model competition.
We believe in your ability to be wealth generators, job providers, community builders, and engines for economic growth.
The lucky 15 to participate in the semi-finals on September 9th are from Trinidad and Tobago, Jody White, Sean DeFreitas and Hesma Tyson. From Antigua and Barbuda, Jermaine Rudd and Trevor Solomon. From Montserrat, Linda Diaz. From Jamaica, Kadeen Smith, Daniel Tate, Janet Henry, and Adrian Burton. From Barbados, Michael Husbands and Ibrahim Hines. From St. Lucia, Leandra Peter. From St. Kitts and Nevis, Alex Strawn. And from Martinique, Steve Bursey. The semi-finalists will undergo further training in preparation for the semi-final round on September 9th. The finalists will participate in a pitch room to be hosted by Mr. Damon John, star of ABC's Shark Tank and president of the Shark Group. Winners will receive up to US $20,000 in prize money and the possibility of securing the attention of global investors. From the Government Information Service, Rajvara Lawrence reporting.
And finally, in the news, Art Reach, the National Arts Festival, has begun in virtual format. On Sunday, 6th September 2020, the first show in a series dubbed Poetic Justice, Voices from the Underground, was an elevated production featuring the literary arts. We have the highlights in this report.
coming to you from Cadet Street, Castries.
Enter hosts Hanson Narcis and Tracy Pilgrim George on location, Cadet Street, Castries, for the first episode of Poetry Live, Voices from the Underground. In the first National Arts Festival virtual showcase, the presenters took the viewership on an historical and literary adventure. They rolled back the years on Cadet Street, giving a brief history on the man it is named after, as well as the Bayram enterprise that was located in the area.
It's Bayram.
Bayram?
Yes. See, this building over there once was the Bayram factory, which started in 1972.
Ah, that's way before I was born. I thought he was going to tell me that this street was named after Cadet, who was a town councillor who served on the Castries town board, and he was also grandfather to the iconic musician Charles Cadet.
You didn't always know that, did you?
For their Tragedy and Triumph segment, they featured Elizabeth Barrett Browning, an English poet of the Victorian era, who campaigned for the abolition of slavery and child labor reform. The production made a pit stop in Dennery to highlight the literary devices that are used in Dennery segment music.
Most of us do not realize that the songs and music we listen to are laced with literary devices. For instance, the popular song, The Anthem of Dennery by Ompa.
Sons and daughters of Dennery, wherever you may roam.
This entire song is a parody.
This is 760's national anthem. Dennery North, Dennery South, one Dennery.
Gina McPhee took the virtual spotlight on Sunday night for the Cultural Development Foundation's first Outreach 2020 showcase, with 3 spoken word performances with pieces titled The Mask, Society, and Political Division.
I see my parents crying on sidelines, worried where my children are. And then suddenly, so deep in thought, they nod like a candle, all waxed out and burnt profound. And then they remember it was their sweat and toil that made mine and my children's worlds go round. How they laughed to keep from crying, how they shuffled their dreams. They wore the mask to hide sorrowful screams. Society really has a lot of things that you can write about. But in the series and the pieces that I'm performing, it's really about issues that you see come alive. Okay. For instance, in writing about the mask, it speaks about a Saint Lucia that has to show herself as so beautiful and as so significant. But you know, the world has not realized that, you know, even inside St. Lucia, she has people who has to allow her to look that way, but they themselves are wearing a mask. These people are making themselves look like, you know, we're so happy and we're so hospitable. Yes, they are, but there are greater issues than that.
The near 30-minute production is the first in a series forming the National Arts Festival to air over the next 8 months. From the Government Information Service, Rojvara Lawrence reporting.
Thank you for that report, Roger Varro. And with that, we wrap up this morning's news updates. I am definitely looking forward to the next interview that we have to promote Outreach, the National Arts Festival, this coming Friday. Tune in live in the morning for the Morning Brew. We will be having the next feature. Last Friday, we had Gina McPhee in studio speaking about her background, a little bit about her creativity, what her plans were for Sunday night, and we did see them rolling out, and she did superbly. So congratulations to her as well. So looking forward to Friday, and also more importantly, looking forward to Sunday night when we have the second virtual showcase of Outreach. We just want to thank you for tuning in and watching, making the Morning Brew your wake-up program live on NTN. We hope you've gotten all the information that we have meant to put out. You were listening intently to everything that has been happening in the government so far, as well as around and about how children are going back to school, the advisory from the CMO, Dr. Sharon Belmont George, on adhering to the protocols. They're reducing on the stringent nature of things. We're slowly reopening our society, and we do hope that you are taking some personal responsibility. A lot of it was in the hands of officials prior and with the onset of COVID-19, the pandemic and what have you. But now everybody needs to play their part. Be your own police. essentially. Ensure that you have your mask. Don't leave your house without your mask. Ensure that you have your hand sanitizer. You wash your hands frequently during the day. If you're at school, you're at work, you observe the 6-foot distance. If someone comes up close to you, just step aside as well. Just do your part. Do whatever you can to stay safe. And with that, wrap up for the morning. My name is Jessie Leon, signing off for now. Do enjoy the rest of your day. Do stay tuned also, if you can, for NTN programming. I know people are getting busy again, but if you can, stay tuned to NTN. Goodbye and enjoy.